Good afternoon. Here we are again.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so today's subject,
It's a big
it's
one.
a big one. It's a really, really big one that has a profound impact when fully understood. It is one that has a profound and disastrous impact when not understood.
There seems like
It
a lot.
is a subject, sorry, please?
Sorry, it seems like a lot more of the latter these days.
Yes, truth, truth. What is it really? What is it really? And if we look over eons of time in human history, we will see that the truth has been weaponized, deeply, darkly weaponized. The truth we are taught through social conditioning and programming is subjective perspective. We were just talking about this before we went live.
Hmm.
So you brought up a comment. You want to share that comment again?
Yeah, I just hear so much, particularly in certain circles over the last 2 years of like, well, that's my truth. That's your truth. That's my truth. And it like warps my brain because there's the truth, right? Can you
So,
expand
yeah.
on that?
So understanding that in the distortion and inversion of our truth of who and what we are as a being, okay, we've been manipulated and controlled. So we've been taught that the truth is my subjective perspective. So you go into a courtroom and you put your hand on the Bible and you say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help me God. Y'all just told your first lie, because you can't tell the truth. You can only live the truth. You can share your perspective, you can share your vantage point, you can share your opinion, but that doesn't make it the truth. So this is a really deep subject. I want to go slow with this one because it's powerful when we really understand that the truth is not subjective perspective. What's true for you may not be true for me. What's true for you is that you have light colored hair. What's true for me is that I have dark colored hair with light colored hair. Okay. What's true for you is that you live in one part of the world and I live in another part of the world. So, what people don't realize is that the truth has been manipulated to be a convenient weapon. You go into a courtroom and you're swearing your testimony saying, yes, I saw them do that. Yes, I saw them say that. Yes, I heard them do that, see them do, your testimony. What we have to understand is that our perspective is filtered through our individual level of consciousness. So what we believe to be the truth is simply our individual level of consciousness and its perspective and perception. The truth is who and what we are. And on a previous chat, we talked about what is love. Love is the truth. We are love. So love and truth are really synonymous, different ways of saying the same thing. The truth will always lead to unity. The truth will always set you free. The truth will always bring awareness. So it's there. We're going a little bit deeper here. So subjective perspective, my opinion, my perspective, my view of the subject is not the truth. That's my individualized subjective perspective. The truth is the middle way. The truth is what's actually happening, not his story and her story. It's the truth of what's really happening. So his story and her story are being filtered through their level of consciousness and their perspective. So what you see as true may not absolutely in any way, shape, or form be what is actually true.
So, as physical beings, it's like we can't see the whole truth.
No, but we can find our way back to it by understanding the conditions that represent truth, which is it creates unity. The truth will always speak for itself, the truth will always loop back on itself. The truth will always unite us. The truth will always set us free. Now, let's say one person is taught that somebody with a different colored skin has less value and should not be respected. Okay, that's their truth. That's their subjective perspective. That's their programming. They believe that if you're a different color or a different shape or a different size, or you're different in any way, some people, that they have a right to ostracize, shame, shun, abuse, disrespect you. Now, we know that's not true. Why? Because it creates separation and suffering.
Mhm.
The truth is, they were all completely unique works of art. The color of your skin, where you're from, your social conditioning and programming, where you were born, how much money you have, your size, your shape, none of that's relevant. That's the unique subjective experience. That's the unique work of art. And no two of us are exactly the same. So the perspective that says the truth is who and what we are also calls upon us to recognize that if we are living inauthentically, if we are living lies, if we are in denial, we will always suffer. The minute we begin to take responsibility and radical, authentic accountability, we begin the path to unity. And the path to unity says, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, no matter what crime you've committed, no matter what shape, size, or color you are, it doesn't matter. No matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter. We're completely unique works of art. And the truth is, we are love. The truth unconditionally accepts and appreciates what is. It doesn't need to change it. It doesn't need to manipulate it for personal gain. The greatest human dis-ease is denial. Denial of what? Denial of the truth of who and what we are, which is that we are beings in our natural state that experience what's happening authentically without judgment. Back to love. We unconditionally accept and we unconditionally appreciate. It doesn't mean we don't lay boundaries. It just means I don't need you to be different to feel good. You can have your separate subjective experience, and we are here to live many, many lifetimes until we finally recognize that we are the truth. And until you embrace the authentic truth of who and what you are, you will continue to suffer. Karma, that's a big subject. So karma is a lack of self-awareness. Karma says, I've bought into the lies, I'm out of balance, I'm suffering, and probably creating suffering for others as well. Karma says, I'm out of balance. I don't know who and what I am. So I repeat that cycle of lack of self-awareness, buying into social conditioning and programming that lies to us in an attempt to feel better. We will never feel better until we're living authentically, which is to live the truth. I am a being of light and love. And when I take radical accountability for my perspective, challenging myself to recognize whether or not my perspective is one that creates separation or one that creates unity, I can set myself free. So we're taught to be prejudiced. We're taught polarized thinking. Good, bad, right, wrong, superior, inferior, special, not special, winners and losers. And those are all lies. And how do we know those are lies? How do we know that's not the truth? Well, what happens when you live that way, Chris?
You're just divided. You're not, that's not love
Suffering.
at all. It's like separation.
I'm right, you're wrong. Boom. I'm superior, you're inferior. Boom. I'm a winner and you're a loser. Boom. So this is a deep, deep subject that can take a moment to embrace. And if we're not at a certain level of consciousness, we won't even be able to take this in and understand it again. Okay. Our personal level of consciousness is what is reflected back to us in our external reality. So if your external reality is one that's got a lot of conflict, a lot of arguing and defensiveness and separation, then you can be absolutely certain that as an individual, you're living out of balance. And one of the gifts that I have through the intuitive body is that I'm able to read somebody energetically, no matter where they are in the world. And I am able to recognize whether they're in balance or out of balance. And you'll notice that Authenticity is very attractive,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Somebody who's really authentic is attractive because they're stable, they're safe. You
Mm.
know where you stand. There's no games, there's no manipulation, there's no polarization. It is what it is. Now, before we can actually start to see the truth of who and what we are, we need to release ourselves from the polarized belief systems that we have been indoctrinated into by the distorted and inverted matrix reality that most people are still deeply plugged into. So that touches on another subject, which is truth tellers. What do they do to the truth tellers? In times of great deceit, it is treason to speak the truth. You're not allowed to call out that politician for
Mhm.
being a robbing, cheating liar. You're not allowed to point out that this person is a hypocrite and not practicing what they preach. Okay, because the truth will set you free. The truth will reveal what's happening when we understand it's not subjective perspective, it's what actually is. Subjective perspective will always see what's happening through the individual level of consciousness. The higher the consciousness, the more unity. The
Mm.
lower the consciousness, the more separation. We're in the great awakening right now.
When you were talking about truth being weaponized, and then you were talking about the division, prejudice and that sort of thing, is that what you mean? Like it really pits us against each
Yeah.
other, like left,
So
right,
let's go back to the courtroom,
okay.
okay? And
Mhm.
let's say somebody has allegedly committed a crime. They robbed a bank and it was late at night. Okay? It was late at night. Or it didn't even have to be late at night actually, but we'll say it is for the sake of argument. So somebody is on trial right now for robbing a bank. And the eyewitness gets up on the stand and says, I swear that's the person I saw rob the bank. I swear it was that person. Now, what if, say, for example, hypothetical situation, this person is prejudiced against white people or purple people or brown people? I don't care. It doesn't matter. This person has been indoctrinated to believe that people of a certain color are always going to be the bad guy. So when somebody is seeing a crime being committed, their perspective, their level of consciousness could actually project that that person is the color of skin that is always the one who commits a crime. When in actuality, that may not have been true at all. Or, somebody who's swearing testimony on the stand may have a vendetta or want to seek revenge or have a personal interest in making sure that this person goes to jail for a crime they didn't commit. So your subjective perspective is never the truth. You can develop to a point where your level of consciousness can see the truth and live it, but only once you've released polarized perspectives, only
Mhm.
once you've released prejudice, denial, separation, ideas of superior and inferior, so on and so forth. So I don't know if that explains it
It
clearly enough,
does.
but right?
Yeah.
And now the judge is going to say, okay, I have a sworn testimony that says they saw you at the crime scene, and you don't have an alibi. Well, I live alone. I was at home in bed. I can't prove that. So therefore, the truth is weaponized, and we will see over and over again. You're pretty naive if you don't recognize this at this point. We will see how the truth is deliberately manipulated, and they use herd mentality to create prosecution, persecution, and separation, especially of those of us that tell the truth. So if we look at history, let's begin with, one like Jesus the Christed one. Okay, Jesus the Christed one was punished deeply for coming to share the truth, which is there is no inferior, no superior. He came to share a message that said, we are one. Now, he came to share a specific message, which was then taken by other humans many, many years after he left the earth and created a distorted version of the truth. And it's called the Bible. So anybody who's religious, especially anybody who's Christian, they may take great offense at what I'm saying, and that's fine. That's your choice. However, you can't tell the truth. You can only live it. And when you live the truth, you're living authentically. You're living from a perspective that doesn't polarize. You're living from a perspective that says we are all equal value. I don't care where you're from, what color skin you are, what gender you are, what economic background, what education you have. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We're equal value, but we're completely unique and different. And in order to come to recognize the truth, we must release all of these false belief systems, which are distorted and inverted perspectives of who and what we are, deliberately indoctrinated, brainwashed, social conditioning and programming, ideological subversion, all these different ways that we are programmed to buy into the lie, which keeps the negative forces in power. Like attracts like. You can believe a lie and you'll actually live that lie, because your inner belief system is what you experience in your outer reality. So if you believe the lie, from your perspective, it's going to be, no, that's really true. Well, yes, it is true from your level of consciousness, but it doesn't actually make it true. It may be your experience, but your experience is not the truth. That is your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful difference.
Huge. And it makes me think like humility is a really maybe first step in getting closer to living the truth.
Yes, there's a number of qualities that we want to embrace. And when we understand who and what we really are, we come to understand that our true nature is that of a humble and noble being. Humble is to be fully accountable, taking full accountability and responsibility for what you are, your choices, your feelings, your gifts, your challenges, okay? And then a noble being is not one that's superior to others. A noble being is one that says, I'm constantly striving to be greater than my former self. So there's another lie. We've been taught that somebody who's noble is born of a certain family. Noble birth. Let's take the royal family of England. Their noble birth. So we have been programmed to believe that they get to live outside of the legal system, that they get to live a privileged and entitled experience. All right. And that's not actually true. But we've been programmed to believe that because they come through some special bloodline, that they get away with literally get away with murder. Okay. So again, when we understand that the truth will always unite, we can start to challenge the beliefs. We can start to challenge the narratives and say, does that narrative create separation or unity?
Mm-hmm.
Does that narrative polarize, or does that narrative bring peace? Because the truth will always set you free. Jesus the Christ had once said this as well. Know thyself, to thine own self be true, and the truth will set you free. So as we raise our consciousness by being humble and recognizing we don't know everything, by recognizing that your perspective is not my perspective. So I may not understand your perspective, but I don't need to respect it. I don't need to understand your perspective to understand that you have equal value, but that we can have very different views. Very powerful.
Very.
I encourage taking a moment to let that sink in. So from the awakened conscious state, we recognize the truth. And when we understand this, the pineal gland, someone's at my door, the pineal gland is awakened, and the individual is able to see through the lies.
Wow.
Okay. So you can no longer be fooled, because you develop a level of consciousness that gives you the ability to see through polarization, separation, superiority, inferiority. And you'll see that the vast majority of humankind is polarized. They've been programmed to see themselves from a external power approval system. When you approve of me out there, then I'm good. When you validate me out there, then I'm good. But until you, from your perspective, give me value, I don't have any. Make sense?
So like, I'm just thinking of all the systems in the matrix and the lies,
Yes.
each of them.
Right.
Right.
which are run by the mental. In order to be able to live the truth, to be a loving being, which is the truth of who and what you are, which says, I unconditionally accept and I unconditionally appreciate, we need to recognize the masculine and feminine balance has to be harmonized. If the mental masculine is ruling completely, then there is no compassion, which comes through the feminine feeling. And remember, regardless of your gender, you have both masculine and feminine qualities. Okay, this has not got anything to do with the physical. So when we understand the balance is achieved through understanding that the mental is controlled by thought, and thoughts can lie. That feeling is energy, and energy never lies. So the individual that's awakening needs to recognize and start to discern and challenge their thoughts and belief systems, okay, which can lie. However, the internal guidance system, feeling, intuition will come in and make you aware of the fact that this is a lie. I call it good jiggy jiggy, bad jiggy jiggy. Okay, so the matrix is mental. That's why they call it meta. And remember, we had a chat in the past where we talked about the governmental system. So they will govern your mental system. They will tell you what to think. They will indoctrinate you, brainwash you, control you, and power over you to make you think in such a way as to keep them in power.
And
So
keep
the
us
matrix,
divided.
yes, and it keeps us divided, which keeps us in the lower vibratory states, which keeps us unconscious and busy trying to survive and one up and get approval and so on and so forth from that external system that was never designed to ever approve of you in the first place. So we need to understand that we are the truth, and that when we begin to live that way, we move into balance. We start to develop the ability to trust the intuition and the feeling before you trust the thought.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you think this thought? I feel positive, I feel safe, I feel grounded, I feel aligned. That's a good sign that it's the truth. How do I feel when I think this thought? Oh, I feel unstable, I feel unsure, I feel insecure. Don't think that thought.
That's
Okay.
such a valuable tip, like such a
Yes.
tool.
It's really, really simple. And if you haven't tuned into your feelings yet, I encourage you to start to tune into your feelings, because they're the bullshit detector, right? Your gut, your conscience is the BS detector. And if you truly listen to your feelings, they will guide you without exception back to balance every time. But most of us have been taught to tune out the conscience, to numb it, to drug it, to distract, to ignore it. And worse yet, the logical mind has been programmed to believe that if you can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, or smell it, it's not real. And if you can't give me a good reason for why you feel that way, then I'm not going to validate your feeling. Make sense?
Yeah. And the
Okay.
phrase is like, that doesn't make any sense, which literally
Yeah.
is.
It's very, very powerful stuff. Very, very powerful stuff.
Can you
So,
speak to the piece about like science talks about objective reality, and it sounds like that's the truth, but that actually distorts it in a different way.
yeah. So what they do is they put a spin on it. And I do believe that there's an old expression that says bullshit baffles brains.
Uh-huh.
Right? So if somebody isn't practicing discernment and challenging with common sense, all you have to do is challenge everything you encounter with common sense. Does it create unity or separation? Does it bring peace or disharmony? That's really basically the it. So when we understand, does it bring unity or disharmony, we can start to challenge the narrative that we are being fed. And right now, the narrative is so full of BS. It's creating separation and collapse and disharmony left, right, and center, all over the place. And that's the sure sign. So when you're listening to, for example, a politician saying, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to power over them, and we're not going to let them get away with it, and we're going to create war and mental, without intuitive guidance, without the higher conscious self. Okay. The mental will spin and spin and spin and just tell lies and lies and lies. And if we don't have the ability to challenge the lie, we will follow the herd and go along with it. And then in addition, anybody who breaks free from the herd is punished.
Mhm.
Okay. So anybody who, like myself, okay, I've experienced persecution, abandonment, betrayal, stabbed in the back, thrown under the bus, so on and so forth, because I dared to speak the truth. Now, the truth doesn't make me superior or right. The truth is the one that says, hey, you're doing this and I'm doing this, and we're creating separation. So if I stop doing this and you stop doing this, we're going to have harmony. The truth says, I see what you're doing. I'm not going to allow you to manipulate me in whatever way that you're trying to do it. And we start to emanate a frequency. The biometric field begins to emanate a frequency in the higher states of consciousness that causes people to say things like, I've had many people say to me, I'm not going to try to pull one over on you. I'm not going to try to BS you, because I can just feel I'm not going to get away with it. And that is the beautiful part of living in the truth of who and what we are, because you emanate a frequency that says, don't try to screw with me. I'm going to call you on it. I've got the courage. I've developed the inner qualities. I've remembered who and what I am, and I won't tolerate it. I'm going to call you on it. I won't put up with it. So the manipulator, the game player, is just going to move on to the next victim, while they probably try to discredit you, because they don't want you telling other people that you're a liar. So they're going to try to discredit you.
So when you were saying you've been persecuted and all those things because you dared to speak the truth, what I hear that as being is you call out the lies.
Yes.
Right.
And it's not to persecute. It's not to be superior. It's to say, I'm not going to participate in this action, this choice, this thought, this belief, this behavior, which I know is going to create separation and suffering. I'm not on with that. I'm not going to sign on for that. So I will either withdraw myself from their company if that's the way they choose to live. That's fine. I'm not right. They're not wrong. They're just, that's the experience they're having. Okay. But I'm not going to participate. And I will call it out. And I find that's a really, really beautiful gift. I know in the friendships that I've got, I really appreciate it, because my friends will call it out. We don't always see when we're being unauthentic. We don't always see when we're lying.
Yeah.
Okay. So to have somebody who's coming from the perspective that says, hey, you know what? Like, I smell a little bit of BS there. Are you sure that's really true? Oh, well, actually, I'm really angry right now. So my anger caused me to have a perspective that says I can justify projecting my anger onto you. I can justify punishing you. I can justify throwing you under the bus because I'm angry. So let's take a look at somebody who's emotionally immature. And somebody who is emotionally immature, and that is the vast majority of humankind right now. It's simply the level of consciousness that they're at. There's no good or bad or right or wrong. It's just, it is what it is. So somebody who's emotionally immature does not have the ability to look beyond their own very narrow perspective. They don't understand that your perspective or your opinion of that person could actually be so far off being, until somebody points out and goes, hey. So when you're a truth teller, and I am a truth teller, okay, when you're a truth teller, you're not always popular with those that aren't ready for the truth, which is fine for me, because it just helps me with the process of elimination, right? If you're not ready for it, that's okay. But I'm not going to abandon living in that balanced conscious state that is constantly seeking the unified path. So the 3D reality is one where we're able to experience separation. We've talked about this in our previous chats. We are one being having separate experiences. Okay. Yeah. So in 3D, we appear to be separate. The level of consciousness in the 3D reality is mental. It's separate from the higher conscious feeling, intuitive body, your higher conscious self. Okay. So in the 3D reality, if you're living exclusively from that perspective, you will experience separation and suffering. You will argue, deny, defend, live in behaviors and choices that will always create further separation and suffering. The first level of consciousness that is unity minded is the 5D consciousness. There's a lot of people out there right now telling a story that says, I'm turning into a crystal being and I'm going to live in the 5D and la la la, blah, 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 BS, BS, BS. You don't actually physically move to another place. It's your level of consciousness that is now risen to the point where you're no longer viewing from the 3D separate mental feeling. If you can't see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, we don't believe it. Perspective. Feelings aren't real, they're intangible. Okay, we can't prove it. So we move in our consciousness, our perspective moves to the 5th dimension of consciousness, which is the first level. 1, 2, 3, and 4 cannot experience this. 5th dimension is the first level of consciousness that's able to see from the unified perspective. So I view my reality from the unified perspective. I don't see you as wrong or bad, ever. But I might see what you're up to and I'm not playing. I might need to call you out, but more often than not, if it doesn't have anything to do with me, I'm going to mind my own business. That's your journey. That's you. If you're going to harm innocence, if you're going to harm an animal, if you're going to harm a child or somebody else who is an innocent party, then I will speak up, because otherwise I'm colluding in the lie. I'm enabling the lie. But if you know, nobody's being harmed except the individual who's making that choice, then it's not my business. They'll eventually figure it out. We all do, because it's never over till love is the answer. Love is always the answer. Love it free. Be who and what you are. And I encourage anybody who's interested to check out the chat that says, love, what is it really? We just talked about this. So love and truth. I am love, which is unconditional acceptance and unconditional appreciation. It is not lust. It is not romance. It is not sentimentality. Okay. It is not power over, and love never hurts, ever. So all those songs and romance and stories, love hurts. No, that's not love. That's the separated state that you're confusing with love. In order for love to operate, we must live authentically. So we must actually view our perspective from unconditional acceptance, unconditional appreciation, which means I don't need you to be different, and I can see the truth because I don't need you to be different. I don't need to manipulate the situation. You can be who you are.
And then you make a choice based on that.
Yes. And we don't wake up in groups and herds. We wake up at the subjective level. Each individual is independent in this experience. Okay, so oftentimes you'll see one individual in a family will awaken and the other members will not. So the other family members are still living deep in the indoctrinated lie of the inverted and distorted reality of the matrix perspective, and therefore not understand where you're coming from at all. They literally can't see it. The more aware we are, the more compassionate we are. Compassion understands. Compassion is our true nature. Compassion understands that we're all coming from separate subjective perspectives. Compassion says, I don't need to control you, manipulate you, dominate you. I don't need you to be different in order to respect you and to support you.
That's so huge, because there's so much, you know, in my own life too, I see it and see it around me, like control and manipulation. One, to not feel feelings.
Oh, yes, because don't feel your feelings, because they're overwhelming. You don't know what to do with them. And most of us have been blocking our feelings for so long that if we even let a little bit through, it feels like the tidal wave is going to come in and take us over. So don't feel your feelings, because we're not taught how. We're taught that feelings are irrelevant. We're taught not to trust them. Okay, so we could do a whole talk about feelings.
Totally.
So please continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the other piece of, which I think is very much connected to not wanting to feel certain things, is that everyone and everything around you has to be a certain way so that you don't feel the thing, because you're still locked into defining yourself by what's outside of you.
Let's take, for example, a marriage. We're seeing a lot of shifting happening in relationships right now, particularly romantic relationships, significant others. Okay, so let's imagine that your spouse is having an extramarital affair and you know about it, but you're not able to integrate, to accept, to allow yourself to feel the feelings that accompany that incredibly painful truth. Now,
Mhm.
the truth itself can be painful. Yes, my spouse is cheating on me and lying about it. That's a painful truth. But when we allow ourselves to see that truth, to integrate that truth, and to feel the feelings that will accompany it, we set ourselves free. And we're no longer in the resistant state. If we don't allow ourselves to feel the feelings that accompany a potentially very painful truth, we can't set ourselves free. We remain stuck in the polarized perspective. So if I'm going to acknowledge the truth, which is my spouse is cheating on me and lying about it, okay, manipulating, deceiving, and all kinds of really destructive and unkind behaviors that go with it, then I'm going to have to now start to look at a whole bunch of things like, okay, do they really love me? Wow, I can't accept that this person doesn't love me. Obviously, they don't love you, because love doesn't behave that way.
Mhm.
Okay, and right now we're being encouraged to buy into the idea of multiple partners. I'm sorry, this doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you're truly in a loving relationship with someone, there's only two of you. Okay, and what happens in the balanced aligned state is that all the energy centers,
Mhm.
the chakras, when I'm in harmony and you're in harmony, we align. And our power increases exponentially as we unite in the
Mhm.
state of truth. Now, if I love you and I'm discovering that you don't love me through your disrespect, you're cheating, you're lying, you're manipulating, then I'm going to have to reevaluate my entire reality. And I may need to integrate the truth that says, you actually don't care about me. And that hurts. If
Mhm.
we learn not to take somebody else's behavior personally, the fact that you don't love me and your behavior is demonstrating that, the fact that you don't love me doesn't mean I'm not lovable. So again, as I've said in previous chats, the awakening process is a circular process. So in order to recognize the truth, which is your partner's cheating on you, you may need to first gain some self-esteem, self-awareness, and self-worth before you can integrate that very painful truth.
Yes, and that ties back to what you said earlier about all of our conditioning around we're only worthy if somebody else approves of us. That ties into the challenge of seeing things as they are.
Yes, denial is the greatest human dis-ease. Denial of the truth of who and what we are. Denial of what's actually happening. Denial of our feelings. Denial of the truth of who and what we are.
Mhm.
Now, if I am aware of who and what I am and I'm practicing self-love, if you decide to cheat on me, I'm not going to take it as a reflection of me. It may hurt for a time, right? It may hurt for a time, but I'm not going to take it personally. Your inability to be authentic and present and respectful and loving in a relationship with me isn't about me. It's
Mhm.
about you. However, we're not usually ready for that in the initial stages of the awakening process, right? So
Mhm.
again, awaken in stages and degrees. You can't climb a ladder from the top rung first. You got to begin at the beginning and work your way up. Most of humanity is living very low on the feeling scale. Shame and blame are the lowest on the feeling scale. In fact, apathy is above shame and blame, and apathy is where we commit suicide. Shame and blame is man-made. It's the distorted, inverted reality, shame and blame. So most of us are believing the lies that we were programmed into to shame and blame ourselves. So we stay in the lower vibratory rates, the lower vibratory frequencies,
Mhm.
cycling over and over and over again by constantly internalizing the external lies.
It seems that guilt's a big part of that and
Oh,
keep
guilt is huge. Guilt is huge. Guilt, shame, and blame. Yes. And they're
Mhm.
used to manipulate. So I can guilt trip you into doing what I want because I'm actually a selfish, self seeking person who's really just low level of consciousness. You're not wrong or bad. That's just your current experience, your current level of consciousness. And we have to work our way up. That's why we're here. We're here to master energy and emotion. And as
Mhm.
we master energy and emotion, we start to care about how we feel. And what you'll notice that no amount of drugs, no amount of distraction, no amount of numbing, no amount of denial is ever going to make you feel good about disrespecting yourself or another person. Why? Because the truth is you are a loving being, and nothing but love and unity consciousness is ever going to cause you to feel good. So we eventually cycle through so much suffering that we reach a point where we go, I've had enough. I don't want to suffer anymore. And in that state, we become open and willing. We become as desperate as the dying can be. And from that open state, we go, okay, I don't want to suffer anymore. How many times have you maybe experienced yourself or known people? This wasn't my current experience, but I've always known God. Born in this reality, I understood that there was a divine source. And I would say my unconscious connection, because I wasn't aware of it as a child, right? It was just natural. And of course, there's a divine source, and can't you feel it? And, because I was born in the awakened state. So most of us are not in that state of consciousness. And that's why humanity's in the mess that it's in. So when we start to tune into our feelings, when we start to care about how we feel, we start to recognize that any choice we make, any behavior we choose, any thought we choose that creates separation causes us to feel ucky and yucky on some level. Now, the external matrix reality has inverted and distorted our experience, programmed us, indoctrinated, brainwashed. If you have a doctorate, you've been indoctrinated, okay? We've been brainwashed to believe that this is true when in actuality it's not. And how do we know it's not true? Separation, suffering, collapse. The planet is at its all-time low. So the first stage of awakening is the collapse. And humanity as a collective is in the collapse. Now, we don't awaken in groups. We awaken at the individual level. So some of us are in the collapse and we're just going to go further down into the collapse. We're going to die in this embodiment at that low state of consciousness, and we will be reborn in a new system. You won't come back to Earth. You'll be reborn in a new system where you'll continue that cycle until you're ready. Those of us that are awakening are rising up, raising our consciousness, and aligning with who and what we are, setting ourselves free from the external control and matrix system. You'll see that most of the lies right now, not most, that's not true. The lies now that are being told are deliberately designed to keep us in the lower unconscious states. Guilt, shame, blame. Shoot the truth tellers, discredit the truth tellers. I do believe they call us conspiracy theorists. Right?
Sure.
Right. A conspiracy theorist is actually somebody who's done their own research. They think for themselves. They haven't just blindly followed the herd and bought the narrative. Okay, so those that are following the herd may not be ready to break free from the herd. So one who's breaking free and beginning to live truth, the truth of who and what they are, one who's breaking free will cause the one who isn't ready to break free yet to feel various stages of discomfort. Okay, it causes the unawakened, unready, not yet ready. Okay, we each do it in our own time. That's all good. Everything's good. The one that's not yet ready will feel threatened by the one that is. The herd mentality says you can't be different, because if you're different, you threaten my sense of self. And from herd mentality, the sense of self is completely indoctrinated.
So good.
A lot. It's a lot, isn't it? But so simple when we come to understand it.
Yeah.
So simple. So if anybody's listening to the video and this isn't quite landing for you, I'm going to encourage you to go back and listen again. Go back and listen to the video again, because it will land. It does start to make sense. So the truth is not your subjective perspective. The truth doesn't come from outside of you. That's just another perspective. The truth will always create unity, but it doesn't mean that hearing the truth may not initially be painful to integrate. But once you've integrated it, you're going to go, wow, I wish I'd done that sooner, because it sets you free. It really, truly does. The truth is unconditional acceptance and unconditional appreciation, which is love. And that love expresses itself through compassion. And the components of compassion are, we're all on a separate subjective journey. You're okay. I'm okay. I don't have to do it your way. You don't have to do it my way, but we want to respect each other's perspective for being different, but equal value.
Mm-hmm.
The external conditions, economics, skin color, race, religion, education, location, any of that, none of that matters. None of that matters. We've been deeply indoctrinated by the Matrix to believe that those are the measuring markers to determine whether or not you get that approval and validation. So I didn't get approval and validation from the Matrix, which I consider a thumbs up, good to go. You're on track. Keep going. They don't like me. The herd rejects me. Yay, it's working.
Means you're more authentic.
Exactly. And this is one of the reasons why, as we begin the awakening process, we notice that our relationships and our friendships start to go through a filtration process. If you're on the path to ascension, if you're on the path to self-awareness and awakening, you're probably not going to have very many friends. And the reason for that is because the vast majority of humankind, and I'm going to be generous and say 80% right now, 80% of humans are not yet ready. And that's okay. So your friend circle starts to get smaller and smaller, because as you start to live at a level of consciousness that reflects truth, unity consciousness, personal radical accountability and responsibility, okay, you'll find that the vast majority of people aren't ready for that yet. So you need to move away, because dissonant frequencies create friction, polarization. Yeah.
I love the network so much, because then there are people there who are committed to doing the work and ready and willing. And so,
yeah.
And they'll call stuff out because of the.
Yes. And supporting each other. So for anybody tuning in, LynetteLinda.com is a private network that Chris and I are both members to. And this is a network that is very dedicated to unity consciousness. There's no separation, there's no gossip, there's no backstabbing, there's no game playing, there's no manipulation. The guidelines of the network are this won't be tolerated. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but you'll be asked to leave the network. So we've created a safe space for each other where we recognize through compassion, hey, we're all doing the best we can. I screwed up like that yesterday. How'd you do it today? Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, this is so fun. And we start to understand that holding that loving space for each other and calling each other out or supporting each other in the awakening process is so incredibly valuable, is so incredibly important. So that's when we start to recognize that we filtered out the people that aren't yet ready to awaken, and we start to attract those that are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So your group might be smaller, but it's potent. It's powerful. A little drop will do you. You don't need a whole herd, right? So the truth truly set us free. And the truth also doesn't lead to any dead ends. So if you look at a lot of the political agendas right now out there, you'll see they lead to a dead end, or they lead to a but that doesn't make sense. Oh, never mind that. Look over there. Don't look at that. Or, well, you're telling us that you're doing this for our greater good, but I can't afford to pay my bills. And, like we're falling apart. And you said this was really good for us, but we're dying and we're sick. And illness is at an absolute all-time high, right? Again, back to a simple thing. I'll just say this before we go. Challenge it with common sense. Does it lead to unity? Or does it lead to separation? Is this thought going to unite and bring me to peace, or keep me in distracted denial, suffering? Is this idea one that unites us or separates us? Is this agenda one that unites us or separates us? So the first stage of creation is the throat. It's the idea. It's the desire. The second stage is divine guidance that says, is what I desire, is it doable in this reality? The third stage is the heart. Is the idea, the desire I have that's doable, is it one that I love? The fourth stage is the root chakra, which says, is the idea that is doable, that I love, for the greater good of all, causing harm to none, including self? Powerful, powerful stuff. The third eye is the fifth center. The third eye, the pineal gland, does not open until the individual is coming from the 5D unified perspective, because the universe doesn't give keys to burglars. So just start challenging. Is this idea I have about myself one that says I'm lovable and worthy, just as valuable as everyone else? Is this behavior one that is shaming and blaming and dismissing and minimizing, or is it one that sets us free? Now, maybe I'm looking at a truth that says, wow, that's really painful. Yes, but when you accept the truth, when you integrate it without blame, without shame, without guilt tripping, it'll set you free. Lesson learned, move on to the next one.
Yeah, there's like, I just could really feel and see something land about when you realize the truth of who and what you are,
When you remember
remember
and realize is
all
the
that.
integration.
Okay, your life is going to recalibrate. And
Completely.
that means
On every level,
change
in
on
every
every
cell
level.
in your body, your entire experience. And this is why we're seeing so many relationships, organizations, ideas, beliefs, they're
Jobs.
collapsing.
Yeah.
And basically right now the world is being divided between those that get it and are moving constructively toward unified consciousness and those that don't. Now, those that are moving toward unified constructive consciousness are the ones that are at a point where they're ready to take personal accountability and radical, authentic responsibility. Those that aren't are not yet ready. So
And
if
you can't
anybody's
make them ready.
no, nobody could make you ready.
Yeah.
Nobody can do the work for you. You know that. You're doing the work, Chris. You're on the path to higher consciousness. There's pain, there's tears, there is some suffering as well.
Totally.
But from the perspective that you now have, having been on this path for a little while, are you now recognizing that it's wise to hug your demons or wait for them to bite you in the butt?
Totally hug them. Because the suffering is the letting go of the old way. And so if you're
The suffering is not the letting go of the old way. The suffering is the perpetuation. Pain itself is necessary. You will need to experience pain. But when you have the tools of consciousness, when you remember who and what you are, and you actualize, you integrate that into your reality, you're released from the wheel of suffering, which is karma. So you may experience the pain, but you don't have to suffer. The suffer is the perpetuation of the lie. The pain might be, oh, wow, my spouse is cheating on me and lying and manipulating. That hurt. But when I integrate that, I practice self-love, I end the relationship, I walk away. Now I'm free.
Freer than you ever
suffering
could have
is,
okay.
Sorry, the suffering is saying, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm going to be in denial. I'm going to ignore that I don't feel loved, respected, and appreciated. I'm not of equal value in this relationship, which is the case in most relationships, especially, absolutely, when they're unconscious. So we have to integrate that and go, wow, this relationship that I thought might last forever is actually not capable of lasting forever unless I practice denial, in which case, suffering.
Got it.
Karma is suffering. Pain is necessary, suffering is optional. The awakened being recognizes, and on the path to awakening, we recognize that we're in control of the suffering. The truth will set you free from the suffering. Know thyself, to thine own self be true, and the truth will set you free. That's the freedom. Powerful stuff.
So powerful. Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I encourage anybody who's tuning in, if you're interested in this information, LynetteLinda.com, and please feel free to turn on your notifications, like, subscribe, share, etc., all of that stuff, because you might be surprised at how many people that are in your community are ready to hear this information. And God works through people, divine source, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Okay, for me, God is good, orderly direction, and it works through people. So as we begin to awaken, like attracts like, we release those that don't resonate with the awakening path. They're not ready. That's okay. No problem. We are ready. And we begin to attract others that are ready. So as you know, I don't promote myself. I work through attraction. When you're ready, our paths will cross one way or another. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
That's how we met.
And that's how you'll meet the other people in your world. So God, divine source, creation, the universe, whatever you want to call it, doesn't leave you alone. Doesn't leave you alone. You need to let go of the old tribe that no longer supports your growth, and the new tribe will come. It's just tricky to recognize that sometimes when one door closes before the other one opens, it's a bit of a bugger in the corridor in between.
That's that
So
whole thing of leap and the net will appear. You know, there is a
absolutely.
little bit of a stepping off
Yes.
into.
If you look at a lot of the old sage wisdom, the old guides prior to censorship and media, you'll see that the truth has been said 1,000 different ways. I'm saying the same things that Jesus the Christ had once said. I'm saying the same things that come from the masters, the teachings. Okay. So even Confucius, one of my favorite statements is everything in moderation, even moderation. How do we find moderation? By going out of balance, we find balance, right? So anyone who's awakened models the way and will simply share it in their own way. But what you'll find is that all roads lead to Rome. One person will say it with these words, the other person will say it with those words. When you integrate those words without judgment, without reservation, you'll end up in the same place. All roads lead to Rome. None of us finishes this race till we all finish this race. We belong to each other. We belong to each other. We are one being having a separate experience. Powerful. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to our next chat already.
Me too.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Cheers.